Hello Aries and welcome to my channel Tarot by Gabrielle. This is going to be a general reading for Sun, Moon, Rising, and Venus placements looking at your recent past, your current energy, and your immediate future, answering the question, what do you need to know right now in order to move forward in alignment with your higher self? Friendly reminder that these are general readings and they are not here to resonate fully for everybody, and they won't resonate fully for everybody. So do please remember to take what does resonate and helps your personal situation and to leave what does not. Last thing is that any information on the extended reading or on booking a personal reading or coaching session with me is in the description box below. All right, Aries, we're going to jump on in. We're going to start with looking at your recent past, current energy, and immediate future through oracle cards first, and then we will dive deeper into the reading with tarot as we progress. But let's first start with looking at what you guys have been dealing with. Look at this recent past energy for you, Aries. The energy is gaining momentum. Nothing will come of this situation. This is kind of a conflicting energy, but I get what it's trying to say. It feels like you hit some sort of a dead end with something, whether that was a path, a relationship, a career, whatever it was. You hit some sort of a dead end, and it felt to you almost as if, as if it were an ending. But what actually happened here was this ending moved you forward. It almost is like this was, it opened doors for you. It lifted kind of like a barrier between you and ultimately where you want to go. But I feel like this is about kind of uncovering maybe what's next or where to go from here. Yeah, because you have worked through your fears on the bottom. So I feel like there might be a lot of fear. There might be a lot of anxiety around what's next, where you're going, what's going to happen. But this energy feels like positive in terms of, as a reader, I'm reading energy in an unbiased way. That doesn't mean your perception of it isn't, it doesn't mean that your perception of it is invalid. It probably doesn't feel positive because change is scary and hard, and it's a very human way to perceive things. But I do feel like in terms of almost like how the universe would see it, the universe is like, no, this is a good thing. Like, trust me. But I do know that that's always a lot easier said than done. Current energy here for Aries. Be bold and make the first move. Communication is key. Right now is not a time to play it small in your life. This is not a time to settle, to accept less, to hide how you're feeling, to hide your boundaries. This is a time to be authentic about your needs and what you deserve and desire, and to really go after after the belief that what it is that really aligns with you does exist. Because I feel almost as if that's why this lifted some sort of a barrier. Is it feels like this past situation maybe kept you small, or it kept you in spaces that held you back. And I feel like this is almost like you've been set free from that. And now the last thing you want to do is go back to, those types of spaces. So I feel like this is about getting, clear on what it is that you want and getting unapologetic about that, because it kind of feels as if Spirit is trying to open some doors for you here. What do you need to know moving forward, Aries? Well, that's too much. That's too much. Clear, concise energy. What does Aries need to know in this future energy here? Know and expect. Still a lot of cards. It's the same cards. So I feel like, okay, yeah, it's the same cards. Your hard work is paying off. A time for healing. Emotions are running high. And then the other card that came out, which is now on the bottom, is show the world the real you. That's my bad for putting them back. I should have taken them. I feel like this is you stepping out of your comfort zone in a really major way. Not just in terms of like what you're doing, but just like how you're showing up, because it feels like your authenticity is really being tested, isn't the right word, more so like you're being asked to lead with who you really are and what you really want, which we kind of talked about in this current energy. And I think that what you need to know is that you are being, this is the word sent is coming to mind, sent to places that give you more opportunity and more potential, like for growth, than these past situations ever were able to provide you with. So it kind of feels, and that's why it feels like a dead end. It's like you maxed out your potential, or what that these spaces were capable of providing you, or what you were capable of, healing, learning, growing in these spaces. And that's why I feel like right now you might be looking for like a way to replace the past, but you don't want to do that. You don't want to go back to similar energies and similar situations. You want to move forward to bigger and better things. I actually feel like I did an Aries reading that was kind of similar to this not that long ago. So it's interesting that these energies are showing up again. I feel like this energy moving forward is almost like it's this test of, are you going to settle, or are you going to be unapologetic about what you deserve? Like, that's what this feels like. Because if you're unapologetic about what you deserve, it feels like there's almost like this, like so much abundance on the other side of that. But it might require you to face the fear that comes with that. And I think that there's this inclination to play it safe. So just having an awareness of that, I feel like, is really important, because we don't close cycles when we leave a situation. We close cycles when we have an opportunity to repeat it, and we don't. So I feel like you need to trust that there are spaces that don't require you to compromise your worth, your desires, your feelings. And those spaces are absolutely waiting for you to choose them. But so much of manifestation is choosing it before you have proof that it exists, right? Because your beliefs are what create your reality. So if you want to create something better for yourself, you have to believe it exists and show up unwilling to settle for anything less, which is really challenging to do. But let's look at this overall theme of this year for you, Aries. I'm trying to keep my hair out of my mic so you guys aren't hearing a bunch of static noise. Overall theme of this: rebirth. Ooh. Death and rebirth. The ending of one thing leading to the beginning of something else, but the beginning is more aligned and more abundant. But in between death and rebirth is transformation. So I think you might be in the middle of that. A lot of growth. The rose phoenix. Again, rebirth, phoenix. Immediately drawn to Phoenix. Phoenix rising from the ashes. But on both of these cards, resistance was on the bottom. We tend to choose what we're familiar with. We choose people and situations and jobs and careers and places that align with our comfort zone, that align with familiarity. And the more that we choose those situations, the more we're going to experience the same outcomes. And I think that that's where you're needing to be aware of the energy that you're in right now, because you're being asked to pursue the unfamiliar path, the one that requires you to step out of your comfort zone more so than you ever have, but also to embrace the possibility that exists beyond your comfort zone. Because we choose what is familiar because we know how to survive it. That's our ego at play. Our ego wants what it's used to. It wants what it's used to surviving. Your ego will always choose what it's used to. And sometimes what's important is that we bring our awareness to that, because I feel like, you know, especially if you've worked really hard to move out of certain spaces, or if it's been, you know, challenging for you to heal from certain situations that kept you small or had you playing it safe, you know, you owe it to yourself to step into, you know, more potential and more possibility, right? You don't want to go back to those kinds of environments. Since I'm bringing this forward twice, I can only think like this is either a collective that really needs to hear this message, or I don't know. It's just interesting that the message is coming through in a similar way. Past energy for Aries. It was a couple of months ago, I think, when I did this message. I don't remember what it was. What does Aries need to know about this past situation here? Judgment. Certain things that were hidden became clear. I feel like it ended up being something that wasn't what you thought. And I think that you held on longer than maybe you should have, but that's okay. That's all right. We do that. You held on longer than, you know, maybe you should have, because you were holding on to the illusion of what you thought it was. Ooh, the word illusion. The word illusion is very important, especially because, you know, illusion can present itself so many times over in our life. And to break the illusion, we have to get clear on the fact that it exists in the first place. So seeing things through rose-colored glasses, seeing things, you know, maybe someone or a path for what you wanted it to be instead of for what it was. You know, I think illusion is something that we learn to see more through as we become more kind of self-aware and aware of our fears too. Because when we're aware of our fears, we become aware of the fear that drives us, because illusion is typically rooted in fear. We see things as we want them to be, not as they are, because we're afraid of not being able to have the thing that we want. So when we're afraid of not being able to have the thing that we want, we're going to see everything, every opportunity, every experience through the lens of what we want it to be, right? But when we are aware of our fear, we can then start to see things as they are. We can start to see people as they are. We can start to see, you know, opportunities as they are, instead of holding on to, you know, I need this opportunity out of money, or I need to pursue this because if not, nothing better is ever going to come along. We pursue illusion when our fear is very present, and then we hold on to that illusion, and then we get disappointed whenever the truth starts to arise. So to bypass all of that is to get kind of more grounded in what is true and what is real. And this can appear in so many different types of spaces, like especially in a, you know, in a career. Like if you're making decisions based on money instead of decisions based on what feels most aligned, you're going to say, I need the money, therefore I'm going to try to make the opportunity fit. And again, it's human, it's survival. Your ego sees things through the lens of what it wants it to be because it's trying to survive. It's not, you know, that you're doing anything wrong, but being aware that this is happening can help you make the choices that align more with your soul, even if that does mean taking more risk, or being open to, you know, facing different kinds of challenges and obstacles. But again, when we do that, we are in a position of facing more fear, or facing the very fear that causes us to play it safe, or you know, keep ourselves small, or accept less than what we deserve in the first place. So let's look at your current energy here, Aries. Communication is key. Be bold and make the first move. Ten of Cups in reverse, expectations. How do you have high expectations without unrealistic expectations? Okay. Three of Wands in reverse, the tendency to play it safe. Okay, I kind of see what this is saying. So it's kind of that, oh my goodness, the Seven of Wands, upright, okay, yeah. It's kind of that energy of, you know, when you, like having high expectations when it comes to dating is important, right? You want to know what it is that you deserve, what it is that, you know, how you deserve to be treated, how you deserve to be shown up for. Like those expectations are good. They're important to have, right? Those are high expectations. You should have high expectations for your life. Unrealistic expectations are when you meet somebody who you want to change into your high expectations. So you have these expectations, you meet someone and they don't really meet these expectations, like they don't communicate or they're not vulnerable or they're emotionally unavailable or whatever, and you try to then change the outcome or change that person. That's where expectations become unrealistic. So figuring out the difference between high expectations and unrealistic expectations is important, because when you have high expectations, you know what you deserve. When you have unrealistic expectations, you know what you deserve, yet you also accept less. So hoping that it's going to change into what you deserve. So it's important to, to get clear on what it is that you want, but to also be willing not to settle. Because we play it safe, and that's what playing it safe is about. It's saying, well, let me take this thing and let me try to change it because this might be my only opportunity, right? So maybe things will change. Maybe it'll get better. That's like the number one way we start to set ourselves up for heartbreak is like, maybe it'll be different in the future. Yes, it sucks now, or I'm miserable now, or I'm unhappy now, but maybe in a year from now, 5 years from now, then I'll be happy, right? The thing is we attract what we accept. So if we accept what it is that we're dealing with, what's being placed in front of us, right? This is the difference between truth and illusion. Truth is what's in front of you. Illusion is what you think it could potentially be if you change it, right? We have to be honest about truth and illusion. We have to see things through the lens of truth, and we have to make decisions based on truth. That means setting boundaries. That means communicating our needs. It means being willing to lose what doesn't rise to meet the expectations. Not because, not because you're saying no to what's possible, but because you're saying no to cycles. We get into cycles by choosing illusion. I hope this is making sense because it feels like a really important message for somebody. This is a time, and I said this at the beginning, this is not a time to accept less. This is not a time to play it small. This is a time to go big or go home. Like, seriously. And, I think that one of the most beautiful things is that we always have a choice, right? We always have an opportunity to choose again, to choose differently, to choose what's more aligned. And, looking at our past and understanding how we made decisions based on illusion, not truth, can help us, because then when illusion is placed in front of us, we can go, no, I see through it this time. I see through this. I see what this is presenting itself to be, and what I'm going to choose is the truth. I want somebody who's emotionally available, yet this person continues to present emotionally unavailable qualities. Therefore, I'm not going to choose to see what I want. I'm going to choose to see what I'm being shown. And that's how we make healthier, more grounded choices for ourselves. Because, it kind of feels like you're at, I don't know if it's a crossroads or like you're at a really pivotal point in your journey where you have done so much work to remove yourself from spaces that don't align, and to truly be the phoenix rising from the ashes. This is about, not going back to the places that burned you, the places that turned you into ashes in the first place. What does Aries need to know moving forward? Show the world the real you. Your hard work is paying off. It feels like this is like choosing to believe in what's possible for you will pay off. To free yourself from beliefs that align with limiting beliefs, or from experiences that align with limiting beliefs, you have to be willing to believe the things that you want to believe before you have proof of those things. I kind of said that at the beginning. And this can feel a lot like delusion. when I was starting my business, I wanted to make six figures working 3 to 4 hours a day. I wanted to work no more than, really 15 to maybe 20 hours a week. And this was just something that, because I wanted work to be a part of my life, I didn't want it to be my entire life. And so I set out, when I'm building this business, I said, I'm building this business to make six figures without working more than 15 to 20 hours a week. And it took a lot of shifting limiting beliefs, because there were times where I was like, I am not working enough to make the money that I want. Like, I need to be working more. I need to be doing more. But I remember the universe was like, that's not what you want, though. You want to be able to do this. So show up in that energy. And I did. And after 3 years, I hit that goal. And, it really taught me that we really can live in the reality of what we want to be true, but it does require us to go on the journey of trusting the process. And I feel like for you, Aries, you have the Strength, the Ten of Wands, and the Emperor. I feel like for you, this is about letting go of beliefs that have kept you in places that don't align with you. Because for me, growing up believing, I used to be a financial advisor, which is essentially working in sales, and it's very much wrapped up in hustle culture. You have to work 12 to 14-hour days, just to, the first few years of your career, just to, make it. And then, eventually you make it and everything's great, but it's like you're miserable, right? I didn't want that. I didn't want to be a part of that. I thought I did for a long time, but I didn't want to be a part of that. And when you kind of remove yourself from those spaces, you realize that's not what's true. That's what society has taught you to believe. It's what, your parents have taught you to believe about yourself or what's possible for you. And one of the most beautiful things about this life, truly, is that we can create a life that aligns with what we desire. But it requires us to believe that that life is possible and to figure out what we need to do to get there. And this is about you, Aries, understanding that you've been selling yourself short in a lot of ways, okay? And we all do it. But you've been selling yourself short in terms of what you think you have to do in order to receive what you need, whether it's working 1,000,000 hours a week just to make decent money, or whether it's working in places that you hate just to survive. You've probably been taught you have to do that. And that makes plenty of sense why you would be in those spaces. But what if there were spaces and places that were available to you that didn't require you to be miserable all the time, right? What if the life that you desired was possible, but it required you to take a different path or to show up in a different way? Because if you're willing to approach life from that perspective, from what can I do differently to create different results, then that's where you understand I have the power. I have the power to create the life of my dreams, instead of doing the same thing over and over again, experiencing the same results and wanting different ones, right? It's natural, it's human, and I'm certainly not blaming you for anything that you've been through or experienced in your life. But I do feel like this future energy, especially with this Strength and this Emperor here, this is really about starting to believe in how powerful you really are and how much potential you truly have. I feel like you've been carrying a lot, this Ten of Wands, for so long. You have to place this down before you can fully step into this. What these might be is beliefs of, again, what's required of you in order to make money, or what you have to endure in order to have a relationship, or, just beliefs and things that really aren't yours, but have been kind of handed to you, because there's so much more possibility on the other side of this. I feel like this is a pretty major cycle in your life. And this is about breaking out of that cycle and taking your life to new levels, instead of just going right back into the same exact cycle, which is what a lot of people do. So bringing awareness and discernment to your energy can be really important, because it can help you say, okay, here's what I did in the past to lead to those results. I don't want those results. I want these results. So what can I do to move forward in a different capacity? So I hope this makes sense, because I feel like it got a little bit more kind of technical there toward the end. But I'm going to hop on over to the extended, and we're going to dive deeper into this, ultimately looking at what you need to do right now in order to move forward in alignment with your higher self. So looking at that tangible advice, and I've got an advice card to pull at the very end. So diving deeper into the messages and trying to help bring through some of that guidance from your spiritual team. Thank you so much, Aries, as always, for your support of me as a reader. I obviously hope that this helped and resonated with you in a way that you were needing today. And as always, I wish you nothing but love and healing and all of the wonderful things you deserve and desire on your journey moving forward. All right, bye, Aries.